And start the recording. Hi, everybody. This is Katie Hawkins from Unbridled Equine. It's so nice to see all of you. And I am excited to share with you a little bit about the topic for this week, which is utilizing the Hudson AquaPacer water treadmill for rehab versus conditioning in our horses. And this is a topic that I think we use with our water treadmills so commonly, but to look at it and dive into it a little bit deeper, it's going to give the why behind what you will do on either side of either a rehab or a conditioning horse that you're going to be working with. With that said, as I go along, I do have a presentation. It is it's simple. It's more to give you visuals and notes if you want to jot down. But more than that, I hope it engages you in questions. So if you have a question, feel free to unmute. Just be like, hey, Katie, quick question about that. So feel free to pop in. You can also put it in the chat. I'll pull the chat up so I make sure I have that. But that way you guys can ask away. And if you don't want to talk, that's not a problem. You can just put it in the chat as well. So to give you a little background, if you haven't been on with me before, I am the founder and owner of Unbridled Equine, and we are a multifaceted company that specializes in equine massage, equine rehab and conditioning, and also education and training. Just about, let's see, we started this, wow, I would almost say a year ago. I'm lucky to have utilized a Hudson AquaPacer in my rehab program. And Hudson and I decided about a year ago to start talking about what let me make sure this isn't someone trying to join us. Oh, they can't join the Zoom meeting. Okay, hold on, pause that thought. Let me give them the Zoom link. Sorry, I don't want someone to feel left out. We were able to join forces, I'll call it, about, like I said, let's see if I can copy it. Oh, I can. I love when that happens. Good. I'm glad you guys used my number to actually try to get on. About a year ago, and we started talking, and it was really that I was seeing there was this lack of education and community in the industry of rehabbing and using water treadmills in the equine industry. And so I don't know about you, but if I can have a friend to talk something through with, especially a fellow horse girl or guy, it's just talking through that a lot of times that we can problem solve and figure things out. And so this is a dual purpose type webinar where I do want to go over certain content, and I want you though to be able to ask questions about that. But at the end, if you have questions, feel free. We're going to open the floor for that as well. This will be an hour long, so you guys can plan appropriately, and I will respect your time so that we're done right at about an hour. With that said, before we get started, anyone have any questions before we dive right into rehab versus conditioning? All right, put them in the chat if you do. What I'm going to be doing is sharing my screen so that you guys can see my see my presentation, and then I want to make sure you can still see me as well. Here we go. Good, that person got it. Awesome. So I'll double check with you to make sure my screen is up there. How are we doing? Can you guys see it? Thumbs up. You're seeing a presentation, not just me. Thumbs down. Let's see if I can see more people. Thumbs up. All right. Thanks, Grace. Oh, thank you, Shyla. Okay. I want to make sure before I start talking, you guys can see it, and I'm not messing it up totally. Technology can be fun and challenging. So rehab versus conditioning utilizing the Hudson AquaPacer Plus. And so we're going to dive right in. We're going to start first with rehab. So let me get where it's going to let me switch page. Ooh, getting ahead of myself. So first we're going to talk about your rehab programs. And I'm going to double check with you guys. On the side of my screen, I have where I can see all of you guys. That isn't impeding you guys seeing the presentation, is it? No, thank you, Shyla. Keeping it real, girlfriend. Appreciate it. Perfect. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure when I see you guys, I'm not messing you up. So rehab programs, let's start there. Oh, good. I'll put you guys on the bottom. That makes my life easier. So when you're looking at utilizing the Hudson AquaPacer water treadmill into your rehab program, I first want to start with something that's really important for me, that I really like to touch base with before we get into the details. So when you're utilizing the AquaPacer, where you really need to start with a rehab program is one of two things. It is that you really need to lean on your vet with this. There is a gray area in our industry where rehab programs out of necessity and really the positive impact that they have on our, oh good, thank you for your chat and letting me know, I appreciate it. The rehab program, so having the necessity for rehab programs to be out there, and how we are seeing that by rehabbing horses properly, we're not just fixing injuries, but we're actually fixing the entire horse with the amazing equipment and technologies that we have out there. With that said, every horse should have a healthcare team, and that healthcare team needs to be led by their vet. And so having a vet work with you and alongside of you and help you figure out what parts of the rehab plan, specifically, let's look at the Hudson AquaPacer. They're going to have the research and the understanding for that injury, what they're going to need. And so having your vet alongside of you is going to be immensely helpful. And so having that vet directed, but also customized. So often in rehab plans, people ask me if I have, a suspensory issue on a front leg, what do you do for that? What is the rehab plan for that injury? It's never the same. Once I think I figure out, I'm having this common trend with horses with a kissing spine rehab after surgery, a horse throws me a curveball. So every plan is specific to the horse. So those are two key pieces that I want you to remember as we go through this. When talking about the horse's rehab plan and utilizing the water treadmill. So when you're starting, there are a few factors that I want you to think through before figuring out their rehab plan using the water treadmill. So the first is, okay, we get this horse in, we know we want to use the water treadmill in their rehab process. Okay, first of all, what is the horse's injury that they're there for? What is the prognosis of the injury? So this is giving us an idea. Is the goal that the horse is going to get back in the show ring because it's a performance horse, or is the goal that the horse is going to be able to be sound, pasture sound? Okay, well then we're going to push that horse at a different rate. We need to know any procedures or surgeries that have been completed on this horse prior to them arriving, and what the plan is as far as, is there going to be any shockwave, injections, regenerative medicine? What are we going to do while the horse is there? Because that's also going to play into their schedule with the water treadmill. And another big one is goals. And this is where the owner, the vet, body workers, farriers, rehabbers, all of us work together as a team to figure out what are realistic goals for this horse, knowing that those goals could change as we go along. And sometimes the horse will knock those goals like out of the field. Like they're like, please, I've got this. And we're going to come up with new goals because the horses want to heal. So they might say, you guys might think I'm going to do this, but I'm going to be back in that show ring. So watch me. So really looking at the goals for that horse. And then on top of that, getting the background of that horse, because that's going to play into how you use the water treadmill as well. So the horse's previous health before they got there, injuries, surgeries, what type of training program were they in? Because this is going to play into their fitness. Yes, they might be a horse that has been on stall rest or has started back to hand walking, and then they come into a rehab setting. But what kind of training is this horse used to? Are they being ridden every day and horse showing regularly, or are they more of a hobby horse that the owner's going out there a couple times a week to ride them, and it's more in a casual setting? That's going to play into what is their fitness once they get on the water treadmill, and any issues they have. This is important because when you're getting a horse in, it's going to be a new personality for you to learn. And Sometimes the owner may have, some insight, or the vet may have some insight as to how that horse can react to certain things. Now, a lot of what they're going to be exposed to is going to be very new to them. So they may have no idea how they're going to respond. Every single horse's rehab needs are unique. And just, I cannot stress that enough, that, every single horse is going to need something different, and their needs may change as you're working with them. And this is a big one because, we have this AquaPacer available to us, and it is probably your most important rehab tool that you can use. But in certain cases, it's going to be detrimental to the injury. And that would go into talking with the vet about, okay, when there is a significant drag in the water, or when the horse is bringing their leg in a forward motion or forward motion and up, is that going to tax the injury too much, that this is not the best form of treatment for them? And oftentimes you can play with not only the water temperature, water depth, and the treadmill speed to accommodate that horse, but there may be times where at certain points in their rehab journey, it's not water treading that they need. So really thinking about it as all the tools you have, and there's not just one tool that can fix this horse. And the cool part of utilizing the AquaPacer, and why I really love having it as part of a rehab program, is that a lot of times you're going to get back to work sooner. So in traditional rehab, that you're at your home barn, you're doing just rehab with what you have there, we oftentimes stall rest a horse, we start hand walking them, we might return them to turnout, and then we get on them under saddle. And under saddle may be, just under saddle walking for a significant amount of time, and that's okay. But a lot of times with having that, we're not able to get them back to work or get their fitness up as we would by utilizing the AquaPacer. The other piece is, with rehab horses, I really, really strive to have them in a controlled, safe environment. So the fact that they're not in their regular working program, they may not be getting turned out. They may, obviously not be getting ridden. And so their demeanor is going to be on the side of being a bit more, I'm going to call it cheeky. They may have a little more energy, a little more sass to them. And so what's important is, there's only so many factors we can control when we're working with a horse, because they're going to have a mind of their own. But if we can have them in an environment where we're able to control some of the factors and keep them as safe as possible, that is going to help us along the road as they rehab. The other really big piece, you're going to decrease compensation patterns created by the injury or the overall use. And this is where I talk about not just healing the injury, but healing the horse. And so this could be that the horse comes in with a left front injury, and that, let's just call it a coffin bone fracture. Okay, so they're in left front issue. So we're going to do the medicine, whatever the vet is prescribed, as far as getting this injury time off, maybe some regenerative medicine, ultrasound, shockwave, whatever they're doing. But because that horse maybe over time has, let's just call it more of a club foot on that left foot, and they have had some soundness issues with it. Okay, well, this injury is why they're there, but because of this injury, horses naturally compensate over time. And compensation patterns are something they're really hard to break. And so, because they do them naturally without even thinking. And so when they're on a treadmill, they're forced to track straight. And also you're going to notice where those compensation patterns are by having them on the treadmill tracking straight, and also incorporating water into it. And so it's really neat. And sometimes it's not related to the injury. Sometimes a horse has learned to maybe they're big and athletic enough that they don't have to really push their top line, utilize their hind end. Well, all of a sudden, they're kind of coming from a point of they're in rehab, so maybe they're not as strong. And we're going to back them off a little bit and say, why don't you use yourself correctly and push off your hind end and start engaging your top line so that we can help you not only overcome this injury, but actually be fitter and more properly balanced than you were maybe ever in your life. It is an immensely challenging workout in a short amount of time. And I think this is the part that when people first start putting horses on water treadmills, even fit horses, but let's take that to just rehab horses, horses that have stall rested or only been hand walking or are, newly back to work. Horses lose fitness very quickly, just like us. It's a lot harder to gain our fitness, and it's a heck of a lot easier to lose it, which seems very unfair. But knowing that you need to pay attention to what the horse is telling you when they're on the water treadmill, because just because a horse looks fit or just because a horse has been fit in the past does not mean that they're going to be on the treadmill or working on it in a certain way that maybe you might have a preconceived notion about. And so knowing that the workout is going to be challenging just because of the elements that are part of it, being the water and the treadmill and the depth of the water. And so you're able to get a lot done in a shorter amount of time while still being in a very safe and comfortable environment for the rehab horse. And the other thing I've noticed is these horses love it. Part of our training protocol, the unbridled training protocol that we go through with new horses as they get introduced to the AquaPacer, is it's really about getting them on board with the idea that this is a total novel piece of equipment. It's a brand new, loading procedure, standing there, bubbles coming up, water coming from the bottom. How can we get them to enjoy the experience at their own pace, and then get them on board? Because once they start to enjoy it, they are going to want to be part of their rehab process versus it being a necessary, boring time in their life that they're just stuck in the stall and they're hand walked and they miss going out with their friends in turnout, or they miss being ridden, or they miss going to shows. Their whole mindset has to change that, okay, you have a new job and your new job is to heal from this injury and it's to get better. And we have cool ways for you to do that. So get on board. This is going to be fun. And the horse in this picture is actually a really great one as an example. He was a highly competitive polo horse. And so he had a wonderful work ethic. Talk about a horse that blew his goals out of the water. And he was one of those that when he got to get to work and he got to be on the AquaPacer, I think in his heart felt like he was back to having a job. And so that's getting them on board to enjoy that rehab process. And I think next, oh, good. Oh, I don't want them to all go at once. That was impressive. Couldn't even plan that. Okay, let's stop there. So rehab program horses, just to give you a couple examples. The first horse that I have over here it's my left. I hope it's your left, but it's a Bay Arabian with a big blaze down down his face. His name was Clark, and he came to us with a fracture in his foot and it was an avulsion fracture. So it was a complicated fracture that they had been having issues with for some time. And so he's also an Arabian. So he is a high energy horse that needed stimulation and a hard work program. And so with him and his rehab program, it was getting him working again. And the reason the water is all the way up to his chest is getting him buoyant or getting weight off of that fracture while still allowing his legs to naturally move through the water. And one piece to remember with rehab is that when a horse has that compression down on their hoof and they have that push against their frog, that is when blood flows through their legs, since they don't have muscles below their knee or carpus. So that is the mechanism that is helping to push blood flow through their leg. And so being able to do that in a way that has less shock on it because you're using the water to keep them buoyant, and their footfalls are very soft and gentle. It's a great way to initiate healing, especially in something having to do down in their feet. So we'll watch Clark a little bit. You can see with his movements, he has a quick stride because he's an Arabian. He has small little legs and he moves quickly. And you can see though, with his rehab, he's able to just step right through the water, and his legs are a little bit buoyant as they come up and then they place down gently. This next horse was coming back from a leg injury, and he had spent some time not with us before he came to us. And so we were working him past kind of the stall rest, hand walking portion, trying to get him towards the finishing parts of his rehab before a rider went back on him. And so this was actually one of his beginning times on the water treadmill. You can see the steam. So this is a hot water treadmill. And we're taking a video to show his mom how great he's doing. So sorry for the videoing, but you can see with him, we wanted the water up above his knee to his hock level. He was quite a fit horse. He's a competition horse. And so a warm blood, I think he's a jumper or a hunter, I can't remember. But he was quite fit even when we got him still. And so we were able to keep the water where he was not completely buoyant, but we were getting the motion we needed through his fetlock and legs by having the water at knee and hock height in the back. And so you can kind of see that from the side. And I'll play it one more time so you can see it. He's got such a cute little face right here in the middle. But what's neat is when you're thinking about water height, which we could probably do a whole session on that, but because we wanted to focus on the lower legs while still giving him a little bit of a workout because he was a highly spirited horse, by doing that, we were able to focus on fetlock, leg motion, get him having a nice even stride. He had a lot of compensation patterns going on. And on top of that, work on his fitness along his top line as well. And so his water height is different, but it's very purposeful in the way of what we're focusing to have the horse work on. In the first video I showed you with Clark, the water height was all the way up to his chest. When it is that high, that always needs to be warm water, not cold. You would never put cold water really above their knee, hock height at the highest, because it's so cold, which when I do my on-site trainings, I love to have people, everyone would be comfortable going in the 98 degree, 96 degree water. That's quite comfortable, maybe except on a hot summer day. But when you get in that cold salt water, that's 32 degrees, 33 degrees, and it's truly cold. You come to realize why you have to keep that below their knee or hock so that although it is splashing up on them, it's not submerging them where they have most of their muscle tone, where they really could go into shock or get cold. And then this last horse, he is, I think, half Arabian, half quarter horse, and he had a hock fracture. And so he was stall rested and hand walked for quite some time. But what was cool was while he was hand walking with us, we were able to get him back to where he was working at the water treadmill because we were able to make him buoyant, able to get all the water all the way up. And I did this one from the back since his injury is towards the back. I want you to see that he's actually bringing those hocks through the water. So getting exercise, I'm proud of him. That's the thumbs up. He was one that could be quite excited about going in the water treadmill. So when he actually had that ideal posture of getting his head relaxed, utilizing his top line, pushing off from his hind end, we were really getting a great session out of him while still keeping that hock fracture safe. So those are some examples of rehab water treadmill uses and why we would do it the way we would do it using all those factors I talked about before. Before I move on, does anyone have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself or put them in the chat and I will share them, but specifically to rehab programs and utilizing the AquaPacer as to the foresight of how you're going to use it when the horse first comes in, what you need to know about the horse, and then why you would use it. If you have a burning question, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away. If you don't want to join us with your voice or your face, feel free to also put it in the chat, and I will make sure to answer that as well. The next one we're going to talk about, or if you want to save it for the end, that's totally fine as well. The next thing we're going to talk about is a conditioning program with utilizing the AquaPacer water treadmill to gain fitness and use that as conditioning. So when thinking of it this way, you're going to kind of shift gears. You're incorporating the AquaPacer into the horse's fitness program. You need to understand what is the background information of this horse and what are the goals. And this is, again, you're going to get approval and, working alongside the vet so that the horse is in an appropriate place, and utilizing the water treadmill will be beneficial to their fitness. And then the owner's a big part of this, because they're making the choice that they want to take maybe their horse's fitness to the next level, or they see that the horse is having maybe compensation patterns or needs to strengthen through the top line. And they understand a really healthy, beneficial way for them to do this and build strong, supple, healthy muscle is by utilizing the AquaPacer. And so this is where they have come to this decision, and we want to really understand what their goals are so that we're doing this in a way that they feel like they're getting what they need out of it along with their horse. So these are those background pieces where I feel like if everyone understands what the goals are, then everyone's going to have the same expectations, and everyone should be getting the results that they want. But again, still utilizing the vet for this, because while gathering the background information, you might find out something where you want to utilize the water depth in a certain way or the speed in a certain way. The other piece this is probably my favorite piece, is that, and as a body worker, I think this interests me a lot as well. So when using the AquaPacer, you're getting conditioning that is not only unique in the way of how it's utilizing the horse's entire body, but it's a quality exercise without adding the rider. And that's so cool to me, because whenever you're adding a rider on, you're adding in not only weight, but also their weaknesses and compensation patterns. And I think that's the part, we can get so focused on the horse, and rider health and body awareness is really important, because when doing that, how much of that horse's compensation pattern are we causing or hindering it to get better? And so the ability to work out a horse without putting a rider on them is a huge beneficial piece on so many levels. But I really think it's cool when you're taking away a component of the rider so that you can just focus on the horse's fitness and conditioning, and is there stuff going on that maybe you wouldn't see because maybe the rider is helping them out. Maybe this horse is really heavy on their front end, but they have a male rider on them or a strong rider that can keep them in their hand and keep them engaged. But without that, maybe their owner gets on, so the trainer can do that, but the owner can't do that. Okay, well, what is this horse needing so they're not leaning on their front end, which could eventually cause injury? So how can we proactively rehab this horse utilizing the AquaPacer? And that leads me to what the AquaPacer will help with that performance horse. So I talked a little bit about this. Tracking straight on the water treadmill is going to happen just because the treadmill tracks in that straight line. So by doing that, it naturally allows you to fix those compensation patterns. It's going to very quickly show you where the horse's weakness is coming from. It's something you can hear through their footfalls when they're on it. You can also visually see it at times from the top or from the side. You may see a decreased stride length, or a little bit of that where you're hearing them and there's a boom, boom, boom. You hear that one foot is hitting harder. That's letting you know that they're overloading on that foot. The cross training that you can get from this is really neat. And it's not just the cross training without the rider. The other way that you could cross train with this is utilizing your water depths. So if you've never seen a horse work in this firsthand, they work very uniquely based off the water depth. They're going to either be, just to kind of simplify it, they're either going to be stepping up and over the water if it's down low at like their fetlock height. Once you get to about that knee height, they're going to start moving through it, but they might still try to step over it a little bit because they're not quite sure that where their legs are and how to get through or over the water, because there's a lot of resistance. Once you get up to about hock height, that's a height that's very commonly used, especially in research. Hock height is a height that they work a lot of horses at. And that is because the horse's legs can move through the water, but it's still a very taxing workout. And then when you get up to stifle height, generally speaking, the horse's leg is going through the water. And then when you have it up past that to their belly, that's when they get buoyant and the horse is fully moving through the water. Now, what's cool is if you have a horse that is fit and is there for conditioning, you can utilize all those heights to work different parts of them. Not to mention, you can utilize all those heights within one session. So let's say you're going to start that horse all the way up, so they're buoyant at the beginning, and then over their 15 or 20-minute session, every 3 minutes, you're going to lower the water height so they're working a different part of their body. That can also be part of the cross training and can really increase the difficulty for a horse that's maybe very fit and you're wanting to try something different with it. I personally do not like trotting horses on water treadmills. I feel that is something that is unnecessary, in the fact that you can get so much done utilizing height and treadmill speed at the walk that if you're needing to trot them, you're not using those to the best of your ability. The other piece I feel is that it is increasing the danger of the horse on the treadmill. So the possibility of falling, the possibility of one of the handlers, I like a 2-handler system with a lead handler and a support handler, but someone possibly getting hurt, horse or human. And then the third piece is you have this awesome piece of equipment. The last thing you want it to do is break down. And so it adds wear and tear to your equipment, to your AquaPacer. And so keeping them at the walk, it was really all you need because you can do so much. The other piece, so highlight issues that are not felt or seen under saddle. A lot of times I will bring things up, and I find this in massage too, that I'll bring something up and it's something that maybe they thought about, like, yeah, they have a lot of trouble switching from their right to their left lead. Their lead change is a little sticky, let's call it that. And then all of a sudden we're starting to see why. Maybe their pelvic movement is very rigid versus supple. And we might start seeing like, oh, their hamstrings are very underdeveloped. Maybe that's because of some pelvic or SI pain. Let's investigate that. So it can show us issues that either they're not seeing under saddle or they're not really sure why that's happening, and they couldn't come up with a correlation until we got them on the water treadmill. It exponentially builds muscle tone and strength. There's just no substitute. I haven't found it. And so putting them on the water treadmill, getting them in their ideal posture where their head is down, they're utilizing their top line, they're engaging their hind end, even comparatively to swimming a horse in a pool. There's been pools around for a long time, longer than there's been water treadmills. But what we have found and what research has found is that when a horse is swimming in an underground pool, that they oftentimes are inverting their neck, because horses are not natural swimmers, which when you introduce a horse to water coming up, you'll very quickly realize, unless they love water and love to drink it or they've swam before, the idea of swimming in water is something very novel to them. And when they are in an underground pool, the issue they have found is that they are naturally having to invert their body to be able to keep breathing, and they're not utilizing their top line. The other piece is you can't really see how their legs are moving underwater because they're below you and in the pool. So I really have found nothing else that can not just build muscle, but build healthy, supple muscle that's going to be a quality muscle for that horse. And the last piece being build cardiovascular health. And let me see if I can see my last piece because I've got you guys in the wall. Oh, and stamina. Yes. So this is really looking at that condition piece, and where I'm talking about that a horse can seem very fit, prior to coming and working on the water treadmill. And then you put them on the water treadmill and it's a whole different kind of workout for them. And that's where doing that cross training piece, where this is a novel workout for them, is going to help them build that stamina that they might need for a performance horse. And then, okay, some conditioning programs. I'm going to pause these again. So these are two horses that we had in for conditioning programs. The one on the left, someone's calling me, but that's not what I want. Let me get my screen back up. Sorry, guys. Where did it go? There we are. So the horse on my left, the horse that, they're both bays, but has the cute dapples on her butt. This is she's about 12-year-old mare, a dressage mare. And she's a horse that was extremely fit, but had a lot of compensation issues. And so working on her straightness and getting her to, she had a little bit of she had a lot of ulcers in her life. So she had a little bit more of that worried personality. And so getting her to relax and really relax her head and utilize that top line and hind end were the goals for her, along with her fitness. And so you can see in this video, we have her at that hock height, which is a pretty common height that you will work horses on that are doing fitness programs that maybe aren't having any real issues other than we want to work on their fitness. And you can see, well, she's kind of funny because she's sticking her head out because we're videoing her and she's very personable. But you can see her working through the water. You can watch her footfalls. You can watch her stride length. You can see how she's doing through the water. Is there any compensation that we can watch through the water? And what we saw with this mare is actually a lot of stiffness through her right shoulder and neck. And we saw that very, very visibly while she's water treading. So that's something that we not only can help with the water treadmill, but with our supplemental therapies that we were doing as well, with massage, with work on the ground. So conditioning on the ground using the AquaCore. So different modalities that we can use to get her to really loosen up that right shoulder, but using the AquaPacer as our main tool. And then the other bay that we have over here, he's working from the side. This is he's like 8-year-old jumper gelding at this time, Argentinian warm blood. So he's actually a very fit looking horse, but lacked that stamina that you need, especially when at a show. And he was one that he was naturally athletic. So a lot of times he would get away with not having to engage his hind end. So with him on this session, we did a lot of the cross training where we would change the water heights on him to keep him also paying attention. But on this session, or at this point in this session, we have it right about knee height, so below the hock. And you can see with his front legs, he's pretty much able to move through the water. But with his hind legs, he's still lifting up and over the water, but you can see that left hind is having a harder time than that right hind. And so that's where we're able to start to notice some of the compensation patterns that may be going on. And by keeping them working on the treadmill, working through those issues and getting them tracking straight. So this was a quality hard workout for this horse, even though he was already fit. This was part of his cross training routine. Any thoughts, questions, curiosities about using for a conditioning program? And you can, oh, wait a second, I got someone up here. Can you utilize the regular treadmill the same way as the AquaPacer with no water? So you have less, that's a great question. So you have less elements that you're able to control. So usually with a dry treadmill, your options that you're able to look at are treadmill speed and incline. There are, the ability to change both of those or both of those simultaneously is going to change their workout. What you don't have is the water piece. And so you're able to, you can kind of think of it almost like a human treadmill where you could do interval training. It could be that they start off, let's say they have a 20-minute session and the first 5 minutes is just a comfortable walk. And then you choose to give them a little faster walk with a slight increase in their in the front and give them a little incline at a slower rate. And then maybe you put them back down to flat at like the 10-minute point, but they have to speed up. And then maybe after 5 minutes, you actually bring it up to a higher incline, slow them down, make them push their hind end. So you can do that cross training idea, but you don't have what I think is the biggest, strongest variable, which is the water that I see, because utilizing a dry treadmill as well, that was something that we would add into a horse's program. And it was generally on days that they weren't water treading. So let's say they were water treading 3 or 4 days a week. It might be on those off days that they're doing stuff in hand in the arena, or they are working on a lunge, on an equicore, or under saddle, or they're on the dry treadmill and maybe the hot walker and doing a little bit of a different fitness pattern on that, or rehab type program on that. So yes, but the element I love the most is water depth. I just think it's so fascinating to watch them move through it. And it really is the piece. The water is the piece that like gets you that next level. The next question is, do you vary the belt speed when you are varying the water height, or do you find it too difficult for horses to react to? Such a good question. General rule of thumb, as water height increases, speed decreases. So this is just like overarching idea. Every single horse's speed is going to be different on the water treadmill. And that can be based on their stride length, their fitness level. If you get into horses with neurological deficits, it could be due to balance and coordination. Sometimes you'll get a very fit quality horse in a conditioning program that has like zero balance and proprioception of knowing where their body is. And it's fascinating because you get them on the water treadmill and they can't even find their coordination or their balance. They've got sea legs as they're figuring it out. And so oftentimes when the water height is getting higher, you are using that touchscreen to play with your speed so that the horse is not too fast where they can't keep up with the tread and they're falling back and they're feeling anxious or worried because they can't keep their feet going, or you're pushing them past a comfortable level, especially in rehab. The other piece of that could be that it's too slow and they're getting up on either the front black piece of the AquaPacer and getting their foot on that and kind of scaring themselves a little bit because that part isn't moving. You need to up the tread speed. And the other piece is if the horse is not walking in a natural gait because they're having to be too slow to get their feet to follow the treadmill, you're going to be changing the rate of speed. But speed will also vary based on the duration. And I'm so geeky when I talk about this stuff because it's so many different pieces to take into your thought process. And maybe it is a horse that is in a rehab program and is slowly incrementally increasing duration or time. And you see that by adding this 1 extra minute this week, so they went from 10 to 11 minutes, that they are very fatigued, you are going to be slowing the speed down. Or let's say you have a horse that's all the way up and buoyant and at a really comfortable pace because they're just swimming through the water. Well, when you start lowering and draining the water, you're going to get to a point where they're maybe at the height of where they're at that knee height, and it's really challenging. So you've got to turn it down speed wise because they're working really, really hard as the water drains. And so that lead person, that lead handler that is up near the horse's head and working the touchscreen is really going to be paying attention to the horse and the front end of the horse as far as getting the height of the water, the depth of the water, the duration, and keeping track of that, and the speed by going faster or slower on the touchscreen. But having that second person is going to help you understand what's going on in that back end that you can't see. And that two-person handler system is really something that is so important so that the horse can get the greatest benefit, and also everyone is as safe as possible. So that was a great question, Tamara. And I mean, I could go into it even further as far as how those play into it, because there is more nuance to it, and every horse is different. But really, really great questions. I'll go on to the next slide. So this is just talking a little bit more about the partnership with Hudson and Unbridled Equine. And so this is something that I do want to speak highly of Hudson, that they saw that there was a deficit in the industry where they are, in my opinion, providing the top quality quality as in construction and behind the scenes with the water tanks and filtration, but also the quality of what they're building here in the United States is really fantastic. And when you're putting these large animals in it, the last thing you want to do is for it to break down. And then the other piece is that in working together, when I mentioned to them that there was this gap in this industry where people were not being educated on how to use these, and that a lot of my education as I was using it came from talking to other people, but also came from me finding the research articles, asking vets, finding resources, and figuring stuff out on my own. And if we have the ability to talk about these different topics and have a community around it, we're going to use this equipment even better. And the horse is going to benefit, which is what we all want. And then our setting you up for success is where Unbridled Equine offers on-site training for people that have water treadmills and want to learn how to utilize them better, or people that are getting AquaPacers installed. Part of the training is all the beforehand stuff of getting you ready to actually get your AquaPacer there, so that when it is installed and it arrives, you have the paperwork, the legal forms, the record keeping, all of that set up so your business is ready to go. And then on the back end is that support. It's a 6-month support. You need someone to call, or you need to FaceTime me because you can't figure out this horse. You don't know what to do with it. Let's troubleshoot it together. And I actually just got home last night from this picture from an on-site training at Pinnacle Equine Therapy in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So they got their AquaPacer installed last week. It finished up on Friday, and Kayla Talkington, my rehab manager, and I showed up on Monday. And what a wonderful example of an on-site training, because we got to work through the protocol of introducing all of their horses that they have on site already to the water treadmill, but also educating their staff and going really in depth into all the pieces like safety, like water depth and treadmill speed, and having the chance for someone to talk you through it as you work the horses, so that the employees feel empowered as they get new horses in, that they understand how it works. The other piece of it is some people have their business rocking and rolling, but they need a little help with the consulting piece. Maybe you get the horses, but the business side is overwhelming. Maybe you've decided that you want to open the rehab portion and you're not really sure what that whole rehab industry, rehab part takes. That is where I do virtual consulting with people by the hour. And it's fun. We get to really dive deep into the needs of their specific facility and company and figure out how can they really work to the best of their abilities, because we're all limited on time and resources. So we have to use those wisely. With that said, I am going to stop sharing my screen and get back to you guys. Let's see how well I can do this. There, I was pressing the wrong button. Okay, so I think, yes, I'm back with all you guys. So that was kind of that broad overview of using it for rehab versus fitness, and letting you know a little bit about what else there is that is offered with the partnership. If you have more questions, or have purchased an AquaPacer, are thinking about purchasing an AquaPacer, have one already but don't think you're using it to its best of its abilities, all of that is stuff that the email that you received from me from Unbridled Equine is probably the easiest way to reach out to me. But my phone number is also on that email, so feel free to give me a call or a text, and I'm available. The other piece is, for the last 6 minutes that we have, if anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. I'm definitely going to have to stop this right after the 4 minutes. just because of next, I have a massage client that I'm going to be going to. I got a little bit of a drive, so the work never ends. But if you have any questions, feel free to either put them in the chat or ask them now. You can stick around and see what some of the questions are. And just so you know, we have these free webinars, live webinars every 2 months. So the next one will be in July, and we'll be covering a new topic. If there's a topic you would like to see covered, send me an email. Let me know. I'm happy to cover it. Otherwise, I'll be probably thinking of something that I want to talk to you guys about. Previous webinars have been recorded and are up on Hudson's website. So you can find the partnership, and you can easily find, we've gone over success stories. We've gone over, why am I forgetting the first one? Gosh, that was a while ago. Oh, we had a full open Q&A where people just got to like throw questions at me, and we talked about a little bit of everything, which maybe we do another one of those sometime soon too, so people can just pepper me with questions and I'll answer them on the spot. But we like to cover topics that are important to not only rehab, but how to utilize your AquaPacer to the best of its abilities. So if you have any questions, I'm here for you. If you don't, and you're just absorbing all of this, thank you so much for joining me today. And as always, go to that website, go to my website, Hudson's website, and my own. There are resources available for you. Please join us for our next one in July. And I hope you found this enjoyable, fun, interesting, got to see some cute horses. And please, if you have any questions, stick around. I'm happy to answer them. But thank you so much for joining me today. And I loved when I get to see some of your faces, and thank you for the questions already. And if you're here, feel free, don't be shy. You can ask your question. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Oh, wait, we have one over here. Are you able to utilize the AquaPacer as a cold spa in an acute stage of injury? Yes. You know what? Thank you. That is such a good point. I am going to keep recording. Utilizing the AquaPacer Plus where you have the cold salt water. That is a huge component of rehab. Oh, that was the one webinar I'm forgetting, hot versus cold. That was a great one. That was the last one where we just talked about, man, everything blends together, doesn't it? I'm still in Arkansas, in Arkansas training, I must be. And so utilizing the cold water during an acute stage of an injury. So yes, cold water, think about decreasing. You're decreasing inflammation, you're decreasing edema, you're decreasing blood flow, lymphatic fluid. What you're trying to do is stop the spread of that inflammation. And the best part is it's not only cold, it's cold salt water. So when you think about a horse having an abscess, what do? We put Epsom salt on it and like a diaper and duct tape, and we pull that abscess out. Same idea, just a heck of a lot cooler and no diapers. Shouldn't be having diapers on your horses on the water treadmill, please. Maybe our next session is all about the 2-person handler system and why it has to happen. But the cold salt water is something you're going to use in lower leg issues, below the hock, below the knee, that are any kind of inflammation-based injury. It doesn't just have to be in the acute stage. It could be something where you utilize the water as part of their rehab program, where you've got to a point where the horse is on that healing path, and you want to use hot water because you want to get it a little higher, but then you choose to drain the hot water, switch the tanks over, fill it up with cold water, and ice the horse's legs for 5 minutes. I mean, the legs that you get out, and we just did this at this training, they're like little thoroughbred foal legs. They're these like wonderfully tight legs that you're able to use. So you can use both. So it doesn't just have to be during the acute stage, but that's oftentimes when you're seeing the most inflammation. You can also utilize it at a certain point of wound care. If the wound is below that point where they'll be comfortable, the cold salt water, not in the acute stage when it's open and you're going to irritate that injury. But it's when it's to a point where you have those injuries that maybe just aren't closing up or healing, drawing out that inflammation, helping to get the healing process happening. The cold salt water can do that. For lymphangitis and cellulitis in the acute stages, the cold salt water is unbelievable. I mean, those are some of the hardest cases to see because those horses are so miserable. And if you've ever had to hand walk a cellulitis or lymphangitis horse as they are in the acute stages of it, they are miserable. And you're having to hand walk, cold hose, ice. You want to get that inflammation that's happening down as quickly as possible. And what I have found is those horses get in that cold salt water and right away, you see that relief in their eyes because it feels so darn good. And they're able to walk while they're icing. So it's a really cool option as well. And so that is a great question, Jan. And yes, thank you for asking that because the cold salt water is so important to the rehab process. And then when I really liked doing it with the fitness horses, especially, horses standing still generally like to, well, unless they're super chill, I won't say all of them, but they can get into trouble or they get bored. And so when you can ice a horse's legs quickly, efficiently, and keep them walking, they generally get it done and are able to do it in a way where they're happy to do it. So 5-7 minutes of putting them in that cold salt water, they're iced, they're ready to come out. Their legs look amazing. You've done all the steps in one. Hot water, fitness. You have a horse that can stand, let the tanks switch over. You're filling it up with cold and icing them. It's such a great tool and why I love having the hot and cold water. And if you want more information on that, the webinar from March was all about hot versus cold and was really fun to talk through. And then Kalina asked, is your training different from the on-site you pay for when you purchase the AquaPacer? Yes, our install is in June. Woo! Congrats. That's really exciting. It's coming. Yes. So the install that AquaPacer is providing is actually the installation team coming in and putting in your water treadmill, putting together all of your plumbing for the unit and the tanks to work. And so that install team takes about a week, give or take. And they are coming in and actually installing the equipment and teaching you basic maintenance of your equipment. And then they are not there to train you how to put horses on. This is simply an install. And so that is where that gap was. You have this new amazing piece of equipment and now you want to use it and you have no idea how to get a horse on it. And so that is where I have been working with rehab programs that want to start off on the right foot or want to rework their rehab program to where they're using a protocol that horses are getting on board with. And so like the one we just had in Arkansas, it was it's a 3-day on-site training, the pre stuff, the post support, but it really is going through step by step. Okay, why are we using the water pacer? What are the safety procedures? Because man, when stuff happens fast. So knowing safety and what you're going to do if the kind of inevitable issues come about. Knowing, I like to go into how do you want to use your water treadmill? You have it set up, but how are you managing the recirculation pump, your chiller to make sure you're using things to the best of its ability now that it's installed? And then also helping you understand the protocol that we use and watching us do it and then having someone work with you so that you're doing that actual introduction and then treading with the support of someone that knows how to do it. So someone sitting there saying, what do you think about this speed? Do you think you could bump it up one? Yeah, I think so too. Bump it up. Yeah, that one was perfect. What do you think now? What do you see? So it's having that teacher helping you learn the process so that at the end of day 3, you're introducing horses to it, you're treading horses, and we leave where you're feeling confident, but you know you have the support going forward. And so that's kind of what the 3-day training involves. And it is an additional cost on top of the installation because it's something that Unbridled is just offering separately in partnership with Hudson. Great question. Well, just paying attention to our time. If you have more questions, please feel free to email me. Like I said, shoot me a text, give me a call. I hope learning all about the fitness and rehab uses of the AquaPacer were helpful for you. Also, like I said, maybe our next one will be about the two-person handler system. That sounds great, Kalina. I'll be looking for your message. And again, if you missed part of this, don't fret. Go back, you can watch the recording. All of it will be listed in a couple days, and we'll also email the link for the YouTube of the recording out to you as well. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I hope to be hearing from some of you. So take care. Thanks so much.